The doctor came in and he told me if I hadn't gone in within 30 days, I probably would have been dead. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Skylar. In today's video, I wanted to share my pregnancy story with you all. It was pretty scary and it's something that is not always talked about all the time, but I feel like it happens more often than we think. When I found out I was pregnant, I was about 4 weeks. My husband and I were really excited and we had talked about it and decided we didn't want to tell our family and friends until the first trimester was over. Our first appointment was at 8 weeks, and after that appointment we were just so excited we had to tell everybody. So we told our family and our close friends. That week I started to feel sick, but it wasn't pregnancy sick. I was nauseous because I was in my first trimester of pregnancy, but I felt like I kind of had the flu. I had a pain kind of underneath my ribs, and I just assumed that it was part of the pregnancy symptoms. That Friday, I told my friends at work that I thought I had blood clots, and I'm normally a pretty paranoid and cautious person, so they were like, Skylar, you don't have blood clots, like you're just fine, you're just being silly. And I was like, no, this feels different than just my normal pregnancy symptoms. So Friday night I got home and I started having a little bit of chest pain. It wasn't bad, it felt almost like I had slept on my arm wrong that night, and so I really didn't think anything of it. I was still kind of nauseous, but I was feeling nauseous those 8 weeks pretty much. I went through all day Saturday. It started to get a little bit worse. I was kind of having a little bit of trouble breathing. I was able to breathe fine, it just hurt, so I was kind of taking small, shallow, quick breaths instead of like a good deep breath in and a breath out. By Sunday night, I couldn't sleep. I thought I was having a heart attack. I thought about calling the ambulance. If I knew then what I know now, I probably should have called the ambulance that night, but I didn't. So I made an appointment Monday morning with my normal doctor. When I went in, I told him my symptoms. He checked me out. I told him that I thought I was having a heart attack, and I asked him if he could do an EKG and just check that out. And then right before I was about to leave, he said, I want to check you for one more thing. We're going to do a blood test, and I want to check you for blood clots. He said, you're young. I don't see why you would have blood clots, but we're going to go ahead and do the blood test anyways. So he had told me that the blood test numbers could come back high because I'm pregnant, but that was nothing to worry about. So I got the blood test done and I went home. A couple hours later, my doctor called me back and he told me that I needed to go to the emergency room right away, and if there wasn't someone to take me, that I needed to call the ambulance. So my parents were there and they were able to drive me to the hospital. I called my husband and I told him that I was heading to the emergency room because I had blood clots. We didn't know where the blood clots were. All we knew is that the blood test for the blood clots was extremely high. My platelet numbers were really low and I was having chest pain. When I got to the emergency room, they took me in right away because my doctor had called them and said I was on my way, and with chest pain, they don't usually play around with that kind of stuff. They checked my oxygen levels in my blood with that thing that goes on your finger, and they were at like 80 when they should be close to 100%, and I was having trouble breathing. I was still having the quick, short breaths. So they brought me right in and I first got ultrasounds on my legs. and they couldn't find any blood clots in my legs. And so the next thing they did was I got a chest x-ray. At this point, because I was almost 9 weeks pregnant, they basically just covered my whole body besides my chest in lead because they didn't want to expose the baby to it. After I had the ultrasound on my legs and the x-ray done, they brought me back and they gave me a bed, but it was in the hallway. I sat there for probably an hour and a half before they came back, and they said that they couldn't find anything with the x-ray, but they knew I had blood clots because my numbers were so high, so they wanted to do a CT scan. They took me back and they put the contrast in your IV, and then I went back to my bed in the hallway. When they got those results back, the emergency room doctor came to me, because before I had just been seeing nurses, and he explained that they found blood clots with the CT scan and I had multiple in both of my lungs. And I have a little bit of a healthcare background, so I knew that that was a pretty scary diagnosis. I think I started crying. I was really scared. I was pregnant. I was scared for my baby. There was just a whole bunch of emotions going through my head. At that point, they did move me into my own room, so I wasn't in the hallway. And they said that at the hospital I was at, they didn't have what they needed to treat me. And I needed to be transferred to a different hospital where they had a hematologist. Not only were they concerned that I had the blood clots in my lungs, but my platelet levels were almost non-existent, and the platelets are the blood clotting factor in your blood. So I had multiple blood clots, but my platelet levels were so low that they didn't know how I had the blood clots. They had to wait for confirmation from the hematologist at the other hospital to determine what they needed to do in order to transfer me there. While I was waiting, they ended up starting a IV blood thinner in my arm, and they were going to transfer me to the other hospital by ambulance. Before the ambulance got there, the doctor came in and he told me that 3 out of 4 people die from getting blood clots in their lungs. And if I hadn't gone in within 30 days, I probably would have been dead. And that was very scary for me to hear. I was healthy and it just came out of nowhere, and we didn't know why I got the blood clots, and he couldn't give me an answer, and so they transferred me to the other hospital. So when I got to the ICU, the hematologist was there to meet me. He was really concerned about my platelet levels, so I had 3 blood transfusions just to try to get my platelets back up. Those were within the first 24 hours I was in the ICU, and my platelet levels were not going up. Didn't know why, so he started me on another therapy. It was called IVIG. They gave that to me, and that ended up helping my platelet levels go up. The next day, the hematologist came in, and he said because my platelet levels were so low that I had something called ITP. ITP stands for idiopathic thrombocytopenia purpura, which I guess the easiest way to explain it to me was I caught a virus, and the virus was eating my platelets. He said that it could go away on its own, or it could be something that I have to deal with for the rest of my life. I ended up being in the ICU for 3 days, and then they transferred me down to just the regular medical floor. I was on the normal medical floor for 2 days. In that time, we knew I needed to be on blood thinners. We needed to dissolve the clots. Not very many blood thinners that are safe to be on while you're pregnant. So I had two options, really. There was one that I could give myself 2 injections a day in my belly, and there was another one where I would have to give myself 4 injections a day in my belly. And we decided on the 2 injections a day. So on that Friday, I got sent home, and I continued to do the 2 injections of blood thinners a day. About 3 months later, I went back in, and my platelet levels were up. So that meant that my blood clots were dissolved. And at that point, I got switched to doing 1 injection a day. When I was 36 weeks pregnant, I got switched to a different blood thinner, and I was doing those injections 4 times a day. And these were a safer blood thinner. The one that I was previously on, if I were to go into labor, it would take 12 hours to get out of my system, and I could bleed. And on this new blood thinner, it would take 1 hour to get out of my system. So it was safer if I were to go into labor before my due date. Throughout my stay in the hospital and afterwards, I had a lot of anxiety. I was really scared. I cried a lot, and throughout that whole time, my husband was amazing. He was supportive, and he knew just what to say and do to calm me down. I know that he was worrying, but he never let that show, and I really appreciate that. Although the situation was really scary and really, it was actually pretty terrifying, I would do it all over again if it meant that I was going to have another little baby like this. Yeah, you're just a sweetie. After I gave birth, I was put back on the blood thinner, so I am still doing the injections once a day. I have not yet gone back to see the hematologist. I go in a couple of weeks, and he will let me know what the plan is from there. I do know that each time I get pregnant, I will need to go back on blood thinners, but I don't know if the blood thinners are something that I will need to continue throughout the rest of my life. Well, I think this is where I'm going to end this video. If you had something similar happen to you, or something just as scary happened to you when you were pregnant, or even not pregnant, go ahead and comment down below. I would love to talk about it. If you are new to this channel, go ahead and subscribe and hit that bell notification button so you get a notification when I post another video. I post other mommy and lifestyle videos on this channel. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye.